Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tina Cummins.
I'm Belinda Powers, and we are
True Crime Sages. We'd like to welcome everybody back. It's been a while since we've been on here. Had some issues going on and some things going on in our lives. So tonight we're going to talk again about the Delphi homicides, in particular, the warrant served at Ron Logan's house, among other things. Let's get started there. So Belinda and I, if I can speak for Belinda, we feel like the reason that they had to serve a warrant on Ron Logan's property and house was because the girls were obviously found on his property. Now, in saying that, you know, personally, I don't believe a 77-year-old man crossed that bridge, trekked down that hill and across the creek and back up onto his property, even though he may have walked the property that day. It's highly unlikely that he would, you know, fight with two girls at once,
have control of them.
or have control of them.
Yeah.
In saying that, you know, so did Ron Logan have a fear or know something about the crimes? That I can't answer. Did he have a fear that he may have known someone involved at the time, or did he have knowledge of something going down on his property at that time? I can't answer that. But do I believe he's a bridge guy? No. And I think at this point, you know, we can set him aside. Now, there are some things that the search warrant revealed. And one of the things that it revealed was that the killer took souvenirs. Generally speaking, souvenirs could be a number of things. It could be jewelry, it could be clothing items.
Their garments.
Yeah, undergarments, you know, shoes, it could be, you know, money. There are a lot of things, and only if you have the crime scene can you determine what those souvenirs perhaps were. So I can't really say. Now, interesting, but in the warrant, it said that the girls didn't fight. So that's a contradiction in statements. The police at one point had said that Liberty fought like hell. But in the search warrant, it said that there was not a fight involved. So that leaves the public at a place of a little bit of confusion. Is there anything you'd like to add on to that?
I mean, we know that can mean two things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really want to elaborate.
Not going to elaborate on that. So what else was in the search warrant that was pretty valuable? They were looking for things in his house that would identify a predator. They were looking for belongings, DNA, any kind of evidence that he was at the crime scene, or they were looking at devices. So them looking at devices tells me that they had already had or procured information that there were things on devices. Now, did they know exactly what those were at the time? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure, but they had one hell of a task force working on this. But that said, you know, a lot of times when children of that age go missing, it is because of a sexual predator, you know, so they're going to look for, you know, downloaded child porn, any kind of images of underage children, anything like that, you know, connections to the dark web. Apparently they didn't find anything, or Ron Logan would have been charged. They didn't find anything of that nature. Now, did he lie? That's a good question. There's several reasons why he could have lied and asked for an alibi in advance. Maybe he planned on going out and planned on driving himself. Yeah, I can't answer that. The man's passed. You know, he's passed. But what I will say is those girls were found on his property, and one way or another, they were going to find a reason to enter that house.
Mhm.
Did he deny them access? He let people
That's
search.
his right.
It's his right to deny them access, but he did let people search his property.
Right.
You know, he didn't fight it. So let's go there first. Well, of course they're going to look at him because the girls were found on his property. So of course, you know, him and those immediately around him, they're going to look at them. They have to. That said, he was never charged. And again, I don't believe that, you know, a 77-year-old man is going to come across that bridge with a camera, you know, force them down the hill and do whatever he did against two teenagers. You know, the man died a couple of years later. I don't see it.
Yeah, possible, but not likely.
Not likely. So, you know, we can set that aside for now. Now, there have been some really nefarious characters, killers, that were friends with Ron Logan. Garrett Kurtz, you know, in the circles that Garrett Kurtz runs in, you know, with Chadwell, with Keegan Klein, TK, you know, others, JP, you know, others that were all familiar with that property. And so I want to discuss a little bit about that. Now, we know from what the police and the murder sheet have released in their podcasts and, you know, what has been released to the public, Keegan Klein's been charged with a boatload of charges. Brian Chadwell's been convicted, accepted a plea agreement as a habitual offender. This other person inserted himself into the investigation early on and had made photos or images of the area prior to and had hacked into Liberty German's accounts, her, you know, Facebook account, Snapchat, Instagram, or whatever it was. And then, you know, obviously the Anthony Schatz profile. So it begs the question, you know, was it one that did this and shared all these images, or still, again, was it a group? What do you think, Belinda?
I'm leading towards at least 2, maybe 3. Could be more.
I'm struggling with this because statistically speaking, it's about 95% against.
Right. Normally it's just 1. Right.
Normally it's just one. Normally it's just one. But then when you look at Chadwell and you look at the tattoos on his body, and then you look at this other individual, you know, and his insertion, almost laughing at the public and mocking and admitting that he was out there that day, you know, and then of course, Keegan Klein with the Anthony Schatz, he was the last one in contact with Liberty German on Snapchat, had her erase her phone. Let's talk a little bit more about Keegan in depth. Interesting. We've said this many times, but he checks all the boxes for a serial predator / killer, in my opinion. All persons discussed are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but at this point, you know, the evidence is stacking up against Keegan Klein, and, you know, Chadwell's already been convicted, but Klein, he had contact and he also had threatened to kill Liberty German. That's pretty telling. So, you know, they keep pushing his trial date out. You know, was someone else out there with him? Did he set those girls up for himself and someone else?
I think that's the big question.
You know, there's a lot of rumors floating around on Facebook and YouTube. And we can talk about some of the rumors. Now, one of the rumors is that, you know, there were two sets of footprints that came down through the cemetery. And then, of course, you've got the video of bridge guy coming across the bridge. That would put 3 people at the scene. Was it planned in advance? Did they trap the girls, you know, one coming across the bridge, and then, or was it just one individual? Now, statistically, it's one individual claiming ownership over the victims. But in recent past, you know, Belinda and I have both seen cases where the girls were set up, and they were set up for financial gain, for snuff films. And so that's where we're at. Is there anything you'd like to add?
There's just so many to look at.
I said from the very beginning, I had this feeling that it would be Chomo after Chomo, you know, child molester, like, you know, Iowa. And it really bothered me. But I cannot believe how many people have already been arrested and convicted. And oh my God, the women and kids in that area must live in fear. I mean,
Yeah, they would have to.
how do you not?
With that many surrounding you.
And we talked about this before, but, you know, they tend to run in groups. So, you know, was this a case of them having one individual who went out and did the deed and then everybody sharing the images? Or was this a case of, you know, the rumor mill, more than one involved? 2, possibly 3 involved. I can't say. At this point, I have to say anything's possible. Now, I'm hoping that with all the pressure that they're putting on Kagan Klein, if someone else is involved, he's going to roll over. He's obviously involved. With the Anthony shots,
Yeah, he's full-fledged involved.
he's full-fledged involved. There's no getting around that. You know, he contacted Liberty. He'd been grooming her for months. You
Right.
know, he had her erase her phone, do a factory reset.
Yeah, just days prior.
Days prior, he was the last person to talk to her that morning, you know, outside of her sister.
I believe it was planned, but not necessarily that day. I mean, it was something that they
Well,
talked,
you know,
or he thought about doing, whichever the case may be.
well, exactly. And we've talked about this type of serial predator before, serial sexual predator. They're going to, you know, depending upon the type, but they're going to obsess over the person. They're going to stalk the person. For an organized serial killer or mixed serial killer, you know, they pick out an individual. But in this case, you know, he didn't know that. We don't know, but how would he know if the girls were off school that day?
Right.
Was there another device he was using that they didn't get their hands on? It's very possible. Or they could have it and they just haven't released it yet. Haven't talked about it yet. Haven't shown them, you know, they're keeping their cards at their breast. Yeah. He's an interest, you know, he's
There's
got
so many possibilities.
there are. And so you can't just focus in on the one individual. With everything that the public has learned, you know, there are other possibilities that, I'm saying that Keegan Kagan, whatever you want to call him, Kagan Klein, definitely involved. And then, you know, you look at the connections between him and Evansdale, and you look at Chadwell at the connections between him and Evansdale.
Well, and you listen to law enforcement right off the bat said they believe that he was directly involved, but they didn't think he was the killer.
Mhm.
So then that kind of makes you think, okay, was there two? Was there three? And the more information that comes out, and that's where we're at. Because you never know.
It's really shocking that so many people have already been arrested that have surrounded it. You know, what's going on with the way people are being raised in that area? I mean, my God, that's scary. You know, I thought I was around crazy people. Anyway,
Yeah, they're surrounded by them. Surrounded by sharks.
sharks. It's like a pool of sharks, alligators, crocodiles, vipers. So, you know, there are possibilities that there's someone else. And the other thing that interests me was was it the Murder Sheet podcast? No, it wasn't the Murder Sheet. Was the other one Mind Shock? There's some rumors about how the girls were found and staged. I don't know if any of this is true, but one thing that sparked my interest was they said that one of the girls was propped up against tree limbs. Now, if you look at the crime scene photos that we had shown before, they don't show any details of the girls or bodies or anything like that. I would never do that. However, the wood elements interest me. And the reason they interest me is because of the similarities between there and Evansdale, Iowa, Elizabeth and Lyric. You know, so that would be another connection if that in fact would happen. You know, it's intersecting again. Not going into details, but it's very curious to me as to why it would be set up like that.
Right. Well, it's either the same people as Evandale or a copycat.
But how would a copycat know?
Well, I'm saying that's the only other way.
It would have to be the same person.
Right.
If the wood details were in
Right.
fact part of that,
Right.
it would be a signature. You know, that's not something what a lot of people don't understand is you have.
I don't recall, Tina, with the Evandale. Did they say that there was signatures?
I can't go into that.
Well, no, I didn't remember.
Not publicly.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall. It's been so many years. I don't recall.
That was 2012.
Yeah.
I can't specifically say what I was informed of.
Right.
However, the wood elements interest me. Now, let me just clarify this for a second. It's not, there have been victims that have been found, you know, buried from the waist up. We've all heard that. That's not what I'm referring to. So if that in fact is true that, you know, she was propped up. Now in other cases, the toy box killer, for example, or there were cases out in Arizona, you know, where they would redress the victim and sit them and pose them. Now they said that the girls were posed. generally that's for shock value for whoever finds them. So, you know, I can't say how they were posed. I have no idea. Don't have the crime scene, and nor would I share that information if I had it. But again, you know, specifically the wood elements, you know, sparked my interest as a signature, because if it is a signature, it's probably the same guy. Guys, what have you. What do you think? Now, there were other rumors that, you know, the killer had made a letter on one of the girls' chest, had carved a letter into one of the chests. I hope that's not true. There were rumors that, you know, they were bound together. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, a lot of speculation going on out there. What we do know at this point is that the police have definitely linked the Anthony Shots account to the murders of Abigail and Liberty. What we do know is that is a serial child predator that killed those girls, that there were signatures, that they were staged.
Well, and we do know that with the interview with Keegan, that they was definitely questioning the dad. They definitely wanted info on him.
Yeah. And lots of questions about the phones, who was using them, who had access.
Right.
You know, was he being a chameleon serial predator, or was someone else involved? You also have the guy that was across the street. I can't remember his name, but he was arrested. Or directly across the street, he was arrested and charged with procuring possession of child pornography. So how many of these guys ran in the same circle? So then the question becomes, was it just 1, 2, 3? Again, back to square one.
I mean, from the way it looks like, they all probably were connected in some way, but not necessarily with this crime.
Jomo friends on the net.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in dark little group.
Law enforcement's got their hands full.
Yeah, you know, the FBI, one of the FBI profilers was saying, you know, one of the agents was saying that at any given time, they had 100 FBI agents a day on the task force, just in Delphi. People don't realize how many people have worked on this and how many, you know, man hours have been put into this. I'm hoping that charges are forthcoming. But do I believe it was Ron Logan who attacked those girls? No. This was a younger guy. Did he see, you know, so if the alibi was beforehand, what would have been his motivation? That's the question. You know, did he plan on, I don't know. I don't know. You know,
Well, it still would have went back to Keegan Klein, regardless.
yeah.
Regardless of who that is, bridge guy, walking across that bridge, it still goes back to Keegan Klein.
Mm-hmm.
So it's someone that was affiliated, someone that was.
Or it was him.
Yeah, or it was him.
Or it was him. And in my mind, he's bridge guy.
Well, they said that he was thinner, that they actually got pictures of him now that came out, that he was a lot thinner than any of the pictures that he had showed. So I guess he did away with those pictures because he didn't want those shown, because they would see that he was a lot thinner.
Well, and then he changed his hair. And the thing that struck me,
right,
there's lots of things that struck me about Kagan Klein was him saying that, you know, he was ready to bolt and he wasn't going to tell his dad he was going back to Vegas. And that was within 2 days of their murder. And then he said he was fucked.
Yeah, so he was definitely trying to run.
He was going to run. And he wasn't even going to tell his pops that he was leaving. And not only that, he denied knowing Liberty German. He tried to erase everything off his phones, and they were able to, you know, get subpoenas and search warrants and everything, and get the information from all the stuff that was downloaded. So he's not getting out. Not a chance that he's getting out. He's definitely in this, you know, waist deep, chest deep, neck deep. Are they waiting to put pressure on him to see what he knows, to see if someone else was involved? That's the question. And if so, whom?
Right.
Now, is he gaining ownership or maintaining control over his fantasy by not telling anything, because he already knows he's had? He's not getting out of prison.
Excuse me. Oh, excuse me.
You know, something, they talked to his brother and sister, or something I'd be curious is to know about what time he spent in or around Evansdale, Iowa. He would have been 18 at the time, 17, 18 at the time. I'm curious to know. And I'm curious to know what he looked like back then, where he stayed, what his habits were.
Well, did his dad live there when he was in around that time?
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. I know that Chadwell was in and out of there, that the family was in and out of there. But the exact dates, you know, don't know. There was still the other person. I'll tell you the name later, but the other person that lived out there and in Delphi as well, who is now in another southern state.
Mm-hmm. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I can't mention that name. But Kagan Klein's definitely involved. He's neck deep. And in my opinion, you know, statistically 95% he did this on his own. I'm just going to put that out there. That's statistically speaking. Now there are other cases where, you know, was this for money? Was this to make a film for someone else? Was this, you know, him being on 5 different phones at once, and it's all sexual fantasy and him trying to procure images? I mean, that's self-gratification. But that said, there are cases, Holly Bobo in particular, there are cases where, you know, guys get all methed out and a gang of them will, they'll take someone and do horrible things.
Hold on a second.
All right, honey, I'll be right back in just a second. Okay, we had to pause it for a second. So, you know, there are cases where a gang, people on dope in particular, methamphetamine, crack, you know, coke, whatever, they'll grab somebody. It's happened before, not just once, but it's not very likely. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I mean, KK is definitely involved. Um, Chadwell,
PK is possibly involved.
GK is possibly involved. JP is possibly involved. And then, you know, were they there? Did they see the images? What did they see? You know,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of rumors flying around, and that's the problem. You know, the factual evidence, fact, is that Brian Chadwell is serving the rest. He's gonna die in prison. And he should.
And just knowing there was a lockbox and the, you know, where they could put videos and images and stuff in there for all the rest of them to see. That alone is just disgusting to me.
You know, I was curious about, you know, the area or the place where these people would meet up. And I had this dream. Ironically, my deceased husband was in the dream. And I hadn't thought about him in a long time. You know, he died in 98. But anyway, you know, I was thinking about this, and in my dream, I saw him in the dream, and he's like, "You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing? You know, what do you want?" And in my dream, I was at this bowling alley, okay? And so at this bowling alley, I was roofied. In my dream, I was roofied and gang raped. They stole my purse, and then I started coming to, and I was trying to get the hell out of there. And I had my keys, my car keys, and I went to go get in my car, and then somebody put a knife to my jugular vein, and I just dropped the keys and got out of the car. So they already stole my purse. This is all I got. And they carjacked me. So then in my dream, I take off running down the street, and I tell somebody, call 911. Now, I dreamed of steps that I was going up, and these steps, you know, you could say they were railroad ties, but they weren't. They were steps, and those steps had holes in them leading down to a basement underneath. I don't know why I had this dream. Where was I going with this? But in looking and thinking about the place where these people hung out, you know, was it at a bowling alley? Was it at a barber shop? You know, where was their meeting place?
Mhm.
Where's their local hangout? I'm sure the police probably know. Just a dream. However, you know, you have to ask yourself, are all these people involved? I mean, Chadwell's not a good guy. He's not an innocent guy. And JP inserted himself among other people.
And we're working other cases right off the bat. Normally we get, you know, it's this person, that person, maybe two at the most, blah, blah, blah. This happened, that happened, whatever. With this case, from the get-go, it's been so, but we knew it from the get-go that it was going to be so confusing because it was so many different people.
Chomo. So I kept
Yeah, so many different people, just like every time you turn around. Yeah.
I didn't even want to work on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but it makes sense. Why not?
I mean, these guys are the weakest of the weak, you know, to go after innocent victims.
Because you get a little bit of information and then that just opens up another big box, you know.
Yeah. You know, something Chadwell's brother said was that Chadwell didn't want to just fight people all the time. He wanted to break bones. And, you know, that's the kind of person who's going to do something like this. They don't want to just, you know, they want to inflict pain. They want to feel like Billy Badass.
Right.
Because in life, in reality, Chadwell knows he's shit. He's a piece of garbage. And he knows it. Whoever did these girls, you know, Keegan Klein, whomever, is a piece of garbage. If you're still out there, you're shit, and you know it. Weak, got to go after the weak.
Yeah.
Go after the strong. So, yeah. What do they call that? Caesar syndrome?
Well, and them staging rumor that the way the girls was staged to shock people, that's just sickening in its own.
Yeah, it's just meant to inflict harm on innocent victims. I mean, who does that? That's a weak person. You know, a strong person, a strong-minded person, a strong person to stand up and say, hey, I did the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, they own up to their shit.
Yeah.
Weak people don't own up to nothing. Gonna taunt the police or claim ownership over something by making a mark, but you're too much of a puss to actually say, hey, I did this. And the sad thing is, we've talked about this so many times. Whomever's involved, you know, I know I have a potty mouth and everything, but I have seen God. I've seen Christ. And I don't care whether or not people believe me. It is what it is. Having seen, I know they're going to have to answer to the other side. They're going to have to answer for what they've done.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to pay for what they've done. And they do not realize what they've condemned themselves to. They have no idea. They think that being afraid of the cops and, you know, being chased down is a game, or it's, you know, or it's a fear that they have that's going to haunt them. That's not even anything compared to what's on the other side of this. You know, God granted me the ability to see things on the other side of this. And again, I don't care if you believe me or if you don't. Having those experiences, I've seen hell. And I don't know if I'd wish it on my worst enemy. I say rope is cheap and reusable all the time because I can't stand child molesters and I want them out of this world and I want them to stop terrorizing people. But the reality is they've condemned themselves to far worse than any human could ever give them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even realize it. They have no idea. Got news for you folks. God's real. Christ is real. You can believe it or don't, but I suggest that, you know, you might want to rethink things. They're not going to get away with this. Even if they're never charged in this life, they're not going to get away with it. And I'm going to remind people this too. You know, Doug Carter, he talks about the movie The Shack. Well, the Bible clearly says that not everybody's chosen and some people will burn in hell. Now, God's going to be the one who decides that. Are you worthy? Are you worthy? I know I'm not. You know, I beg for forgiveness every day for my sins in my youth and in adulthood. But if you want to, you know, say anything about the afterlife, having seen, there is one, and you're going to have to answer to God. That's a fact. We've talked about this subject. I don't speak up openly about it very often, but Belinda knows. We've discussed this many times.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, that's the only thing that really gave me peace of mind, you know, with my case. Knowing,
having seen,
yeah,
you know. and they don't realize what
knowing they're not going to escape. I mean,
no,
I'm not a vengeful person,
no.
but I just want to, I would like to see him not be able to do it to anyone else. But
And that's the whole thing in a nutshell. It's not that I want to go out and hurt these people. I get angry and I say stupid shit sometimes. I don't want to hurt anybody. That said, these idiots, these morons, they don't realize what they're condemning themselves to on the other side. They have no idea. No clue.
I mean, the world is so full of all of these people that has all these sexual fantasies and stuff, and they don't realize that they're condemning themselves when they do it with all these acts that they're doing.
They don't have any idea. And they're going to call me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and say that I'm nuts. And, you know,
That's what it is.
And I've had the near-death experience, and
We're not trying to sell nothing. We're just
no, I've never asked for a dime working
we're
on
just openly talking.
I've been doing it never asked for a dime from anybody, never tried to make any money off of missing person cases, and I've been doing it for 12 years. So, you know, you make up your own mind. It's not about money. This has never been about money for us, and it's not about being psychic. I hate the word psychic. This is about God showing me things. This is about my true faith in God the Father, in God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And having seen, not a doubt in my mind, and you're gonna have to answer for it. Whatever you do, you gotta answer to the higher power. We'll do a video on that sometime, so I can share with people some of the things that I've known and seen. But you know, God's real, and dude, whomever you are,
Well, through experiences in life,
condemning yourself.
you know, through different experiences that people experience, that you don't try and just excuse everything away, and you actually, you know, realize, hey, there's no way that's possibly happened, you know, without being coming from God.
Right. You know, I've heard YouTubers make fun of psychics. I'm not a storefront psychic. Never been. Never made a dime off of it. Never sold anything off of it. The only thing I've ever done to use the ability that God gave me was work on missing and murder cases. And yeah, by the grace of God, and only by the grace of God, have we had successes, many, many successes. I can tell you this, it ain't by me, because I'm not that smart. So I'm not capable of, I guess you could say, having empathy for these people who are going around killing kids. I'm not capable of it. But if you're going to try to find empathy, in my heart, it's, you fucking idiot, you don't know what you're condemning yourself to. Does that make me a horrible person? Maybe. I feel sad.
No, with me, I guess I do find the forgiving part, because I don't know.
I've long said you have much more grace than I have when it comes.
I thought for a second that they're still out there doing it, you know, and it wasn't just a mistake, because you can't bring them back.
No,
you know, they're gone. They're gone.
There are some things that cannot be undone. Murder, child molestation, rape, you can't undo it.
Yeah, no, and a lot of it is, even the ones that's victimized and live, you know, they're scarred for life.
If God's going to condemn people like me for sexual immorality, you know, what's he going to do to a child predator? He says, better to have a millstone around your neck and be cast in the lake than to harm one of these little ones.
Right.
And let me tell you something, hell is real, the fire is real. And you're going to find out sooner or later. whoever you are. Any of you chomos out there, you're gonna find out.
But a lot of and this just is my opinion, a lot of families think that their loved one is not at peace because they don't have justice, or they're not at peace because their body wasn't found, or
But
they're not at peace because of, whatever the case may be. I don't believe that. That's not my
that's not
belief.
true. Their
No.
peace, their suffering is over.
But you'll hear that all the time. Well, now they're at peace because they were found. No,
No,
I believe they were at peace immediately.
no, the body is just a shell. What I've seen on the other side, and I'm going to tell you this: I've seen souls gathered in the light of Christ as lights, gathered in the light of Christ to be presented to the Father. Christ told me a lot of things, and again, you can believe it or you can't, whatever. But we are not bodies with souls. We are souls, and the body's just a shell. Mind is eternal.
Right.
And, God has the ability. He's omnipotent. He's ineffable. He has the ability to make everything right and fix it and make us whole. And people that deserve it are on the other side. Innocent victims, they're on the other side. They're made whole. And they're in the light of Christ, and they're in the light of God. And they're never going to suffer again. They're never going to feel pain again. They're never going to feel anything but happiness and joy and love and compassion and all these wonderful things. Can't say the same for people that are condemned.
I'm just saying, a lot of people do. You hear them say that, well, they're not at peace until they get justice, and I got to fight for No, I don't believe that myself. I believe they're already at peace.
They're already at peace. It's justice.
I mean,
justice is for the families.
Right.
You may not get it in this life, but you certainly get it in the next one. Because
Right.
life is, I can't even say the next one because life is a continuum.
Right. Yeah, that's my belief as well.
Energy, you can't destroy energy. You can't. These people think that they can kill, let's talk about death for a second. Is somebody, when the body dies, does that mean the soul dies? No. Energy is
yeah, you can't kill it.
It's potential or kinetic. You can't destroy what exists. You can't destroy energy. And God decides, when that time is up, when the energy is used up. People don't decide that. In heaven, on the other side, time doesn't exist like it does here. That's why a lot of times when working in these cases, you get things as past, present, or future. And sometimes it gets, discombobulated in some way. But anyway. Explain that to the viewers. How do you explain that to the viewers? Because unless you live in, let me just say this, none of this is my doing. It's by divine intervention that I was able to work and help solve cases.
Right.
It's divine intervention. It's not me. It's all by the grace of God.
Yeah, a lot of the knowledge that I get definitely doesn't come from me.
Yeah, and I hate the psychic. It's not, I hate the word psychic because I'm not a psychic. That's not what this is. It's not what it's ever been.
Well, I think we get a lot of the knowledge, so we keep going.
Get what?
Keep going with
Yeah.
the knowledge that you're given to make you keep going and not giving up. Because it is very depressing, very dark, very,
When I was having my conversation with Christ, I asked him, well, you're going to give me a new name, give me a new name if I'm reborn again. And he gave me the name Miriam. And I didn't know this at the time, but I looked it up, and Miriam, this is after I'd started working on a case, but Miriam was Moses' sister, and she's the one who put Moses in the reeds and sent him down the Nile and rescued that child. And so she was known as the rescuer of children. And anyway, long story. but I spent a lot of time with Christ in the light, and this world is nothing. Materialism is nothing. You know, money means nothing. Everything is about God. Everything is about love. And people don't, you know, it's so tragic and sad that when someone loses a family member, they don't know what's on the other side. I wish I could share that with everybody, because
Yeah, they're not very far away from us at all.
And they see the suffering that we're going through. They see the struggles, you know, but they're at peace. They're at peace. They've already found their joy.
Right.
And
And that would just be cruel for them not to, you know, because there's some that hasn't been found for 30, 40, 50 years.
right.
To imagine them not being at peace, just a body resting and waiting for, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's not the way it is.
Kind of a deep conversation that we're getting in here.
Well, you know, it is a choice. And these people that are going out raping and killing children, it's a choice. You're going out murdering people, it's a choice. You know?
Yeah.
Now, if somebody has true remorse, I can't say whether or not God's going to condemn them to hell, but I've seen in some of the things that he's shown me hell, and it's horrific. You know, imagine fire going through your veins for all eternity, and you never being able to quench your thirst or quench that fire or quench your hunger, or feel, you know, you feel in this constant flame and it never goes away. Imagine that, because that's what you're facing. And if you don't love anybody, at least have enough self-love and self-preservation to stop. I mean, my God, you know, Christ on the cross, he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And that's the truth, because these people that are out doing this stuff, they're fucking idiots. Taking advantage of other people, you know, it's like the cockroaches. When a kid goes missing, the cockroaches come out of the woodwork to take advantage of the families. It's annoying. You know, these two girls, they suffered, these 4 girls, they suffered, they all died. There's a lot of child victims. There's a lot of victims in the world. They all suffered and they all died. And, you know, it's good that they're in the light of Christ, but their families are still suffering. And that suffering continues for generations, and it affects generations. It doesn't just affect those 2 that died, it affects generations. And in particular, if the girls were staged, that's for the shock and awe, and it's meant to be evil. It's meant for the love of evil to harm other people and to scar them. You got to be a pretty miserable, weak individual to do some shit like that.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of times that these cases, they also affect the communities, you know, small towns, big towns, the world. I mean, there's some of them, you know, that affect so many people. It's just not their family, just not their generations. It's people to come. I mean, I remember when one of the cases was Natalie Holloway. And I remembered that case forever. I mean, you know, I was young and it impacted me.
Norm Vandersloot.
Yeah. I mean, it had an impact on me.
Yeah. I think every case, you know, Haley Dunn, there's still, Sean Atkins finally been arrested. You know, they found over 20,000 images of porn on his computer at his stepdad's house, and he couldn't say whether it was his or whether it was stepdad's, and that brought me in mind of what's going on here. You know, who did the child porn belong to?
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's got a job to do, and the thing is you can't compartmentalize life. If you're a killer out there and you're doing this shit, you might be able to objectify, you might be able to compartmentalize this, but in reality, you're going to face it eventually. And that's the satisfaction that I have, having seen Christ and having seen God. That's the satisfaction I know. They're not going to get away with it. No matter
Right.
what happens in this court, in this realm, the next realm you'll pay. That's a fact. And that's why God tells us to pray for sinners.
Right.
Pray that they have remorse, because without it, you're condemning yourself. What is it? With what measure you judge others, judge you? I'm not a predator, so I'm in the clear. Can't speak for the rest of these assholes out here that are killing kids. Yes, I have a potty mouth. And I'm sorry if I'm offensive to anyone, truly. Don't mean to be. I get very, very angry.
I mean, you got to kind of take a little bit of the emotions out, because otherwise it enrages you, you know?
I know.
I mean, look what happened. It's heinous.
I mean, growing up, you know, seeing things that I saw growing up, it affected me. It affected my life. Scared the hell out of me. And knowing what I know now, you know, there is that satisfaction that these people aren't going to get away with it. You might think you are, but you're not. And the people that are innocent are going to be taken care of. You know, they're loved, they're cherished, they're at peace. So there is that. So there is that. It's just, I'm still living in this world. You're still living in this world, and there's still people out here doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop it? Pray.
That's it.
You know, the one thing I can guarantee though is those kids are no longer suffering. They're not living that now. You know, they're in heaven. And I'd rather be there than here. You know, the only reason I'm still here is, you know, it's against God's law to kill yourself, because I'd much rather be on the other side. No offense to my family and my kids, my loved ones, my grandkids, whomever.
Right.
You know, no offense to my friends or anything, but it's nicer there. Sorry, but it is. You know, I didn't want to come back. I was laying in bed.
Well, anybody that does the life after death, they hear it all the time. They didn't want to come back.
I was laying in bed the other day, and you know, I was worried about someone I love very dearly, and particularly. And I was like, if you got to take me now. Go ahead, I'm ready. Please take me. Come and get me. Don't take them, take me. You know, I'm ready, Lord. Come get me.
I've been there.
Huh?
I've been there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to barter.
I was just going to say,
Barter, you got to do your time.
Yeah.
Carry your cross.
Yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, I love life. Life is beautiful to me.
It is.
It's the evil that's, in it.
That's it. People don't understand, you know, love is the best of everything. It's the best of everything. You can't.
Yeah.
There's no, and think about that for a second, you know, my family and my friends are everything to me. God first, but my family and friends are everything to me. And I love hard. And, you know, if you take that away, nothing in this world matters except that. You gotta try to stay on the right path.
You know, when families take such a hard hit when a loved one passes, you know, a lot of times they can't handle it. I mean, they want to just die too. No matter how many people are here, especially a child, because I do believe that losing a child hits you the hardest.
Yeah.
And in your mindset, because you are in such a deep, dark place at that time, nothing is important here. You want to just be with that other person, even though they're the lucky ones, not what they went through, but it's over because we all got to do it at some point.
Right.
But you think about it like that, and it's just, I don't know, we're getting a little deep in conversation here.
It is deep conversation, but I think it's a necessary one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't.
It's just our opinion.
I don't want to do harm to anybody. I just want them to stop.
Yeah.
Just want them to stop. Just.
Yeah. We're in a bad time in life right now.
Why are people so mean to each other? Doesn't make sense. But in the same time, I'm like, I get confused because I really, really wouldn't mind if they put all the Chemos on an island and, just drop food in. Would I be the one to want to be an executioner? No, I could never do that. But would I lose sleep over, child killers dying? No. But do I also know what they're condemning themselves to? Yeah. But God does assure us that he will wipe away all our tears. We are reassured of that.
Well, I think, like me personally, after all that I went through, I have a hard time crying. It's not, it's not something that just, it does dry up your tears. I mean, mine now is not really so much for sorrow. It's more for, happy tears. Like when you're watching a movie or something, you cry over the happy scenes. But you're almost cold to, but I guess it goes back to, it says in the Bible that you're supposed to mourn, when a baby's born, and you're supposed to celebrate when they're, when they move on.
Right. So, that's what I've long said. Wouldn't you rather have a wake than a funeral? I mean,
I don't want any of it personally.
I mean, everybody I know personally, family that have passed, I believe they're on the other side in a good place. I watched my dad accept Christ. I've had a lot of losses in the last 5 years. Lost my dad, brother, sister, son-in-law, father-in-law in this realm, but I know that they're still there. It's weird. My first husband died in 1998. And here I am having this dream about it. You're not supposed to be here yet. What are you doing here? That was weird.
Yeah, I know it was.
Yeah, and what was really weird was, okay, so he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, so they cut out parts of his neck. But in my dream, he was in this damn bowling alley, and I'm like, and that's where he was taking me. But his neck was healed. He looked like himself.
When I dream of my dad, my dad had a little bit of a limp because he had broke his hip.
Yeah.
But when I dream of him, he comes just straight forward. I mean, he's just as peppy, and he looks like he's 20 years younger.
Well, and that's the way it was with Doug. He said, he's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. But he looked fine. He looked healthy. I was like, well, I was just wondering how you are. And he's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm great. I mean, that was weird, but that was him popping in saying hi from the other side. Going to show me what I need to see, but Yeah, I wish I could solve everything, but I can't. I'm not God. You know, anything that is taken care of, it's only by the grace of God.
Yeah, it's only he gives us what he feels that we need to, the information that we need to share.
Well, see, I think a lot of people are confused when you say psychic, and I cringe when I hear that word. It's not psychic in nature. This is by divine intervention. It's not the same thing as a storefront psychic or people that go on this, you know, $5.99 or $10.99 a minute sites. I don't do that horse shit. Know a lot of people do that for entertainment and they think it's fun, and that's fine. It's all well and good, but I've never done that. Yeah. I take working on missing persons, murder victims cases very seriously. Not for them. I mean, if they're alive, great, and you can find them, great. But if they've crossed over, you know, it is out of respect for the family and compassion and empathy.
Well, I think the difference is when we get information, we're not asked on the spot about this information. And you get these psychics and they're asked questions and all of a sudden they have to answer something or they're going to look like a fraud. So a lot of times they make the crap up. That's just my opinion.
Well, and then when I say, if I don't know, I don't know. And in this,
Exactly.
I
exactly.
wish I had damn answers. I mean,
but I have never seen a psychic where they said, I don't know. They're going to come up with something regardless if
well,
it's.
if I don't know, I don't know, period.
Right. Well, no, I wasn't talking about you, Tina.
Right. I know what you're saying. I get it.
I'm talking a lot of times you see them and then they say, well, the information was false. Well, it's because they were put on the spot and they answered it and they shouldn't have. If it's not coming to you, just say it's not coming to you.
Yeah.
You get it, you get it. You don't, you don't.
One of the reasons, and you know this because we've talked about it, but one of the reasons why I didn't want to work on this case, and I said this, I've said, you know, I got the whole Delphi to Denver thing, and then I got this happening, this happening, this happening, this happening. But a lot of times when I see a lot of child predators in my head, they'll come as flashes real fast, like 1,000, really fast in my head. And it's like trying to stop and grab a thought. And, you know, you got to try to discern which one is it that's responsible for which case. So it's putting together a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult. Now, you're familiar with this, but I've sketched out a lot of predators, and those predators have been arrested, and they're dead on accurate by the grace of God. That said, with a case like, that's why this case, these girls, Liberty and Abby, why their case is so frustrating for me, because it's like, okay, so I did the 2 sketches in the beginning, and we know who they look like. However, there's others involved. And it's like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? You know, and everything. And that's where you have to have the patience that comes in. I told Belinda it's going to be solved in 5 years. Well, guess what? 5 years. What did they do? They arrested Kagan Klein. Are charges forthcoming for the murders? That I can't say. All I know is what God tells me. Okay, so you can, again, believe it or don't believe it. However, you know, when you get these different flashes of images, you got to try to stop and focus in on that one image and then sketch it out, draw it out. Because I don't have, you know, a picture that goes from here to paper. So, and I'm losing some of my skills, which I used to do it on Flash Base. That way I could do it really fast, but I don't have the app anymore and I can't afford it, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had the Sketch Artist, you know, app, you know, because then it would be really easy. I could just sketch them out and boom. But here's the thing. I'm not going to ask the public for money. I'm not about that. And if God wants me to have that ability, he's going to put it in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just have to have faith there, and everything is in God's time. It's not in ours. Where he's at, he has no, he's got eternity. You know, his justice is in eternity. It's not
Right.
like we're on a timeline here. what does Jesus say? He swears by time no longer. The time in the book of Revelation. That there will be time no longer because things weren't in their realm is not measured in time. It's eternity. Anyway, that probably just went whoosh over people's heads. You know what I'm saying, but I don't know if anybody else understands what my ramblings are. So that said, getting back to this, I have no doubt that Kagan Klein's involved. Whether he's a single or a double, a triple, you know, or were there other people involved, you know, it's highly unlikely, but at this point, nothing would shock me.
No, not when you're
Do I have
talking
an
about,
answer? No.
you're talking about drugs involved and, you know, nothing would surprise me. You can't just say, no, that didn't happen because he's 180 pounds or 190 pounds. We don't know exactly what weight he was. We know close. They can get close to how tall he was and his weight and all of that. But as far as knowing it all.
In my mind, Kagan Klein.
I mean, I said that. I said that too, right in the beginning. I said that. He definitely fits it.
The search is.
But then again, you go with law enforcement when they're saying, yeah, he's directly involved, but he is not the killer. They don't believe he's the killer. So now, where does that take us?
Well, that could have just been a ploy in the investigation.
Could have been.
Good cop, bad cop.
It could have been.
In my mind, he's your guy. And
it could have been making him feel comfortable to where he will talk because they don't believe that he's the, I don't know.
Or there could be postponing it to get their ducks in a row, or it could be they're postponing his trials because, you know, they don't have, frankly, DNA of his. You know,
I mean, they're definitely not, they don't have to give out information until once they charge him, you know.
Yeah.
Once they charge him, then that's a whole different
well,
story.
then the rules of law change.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So right now it's basically, you know, I know this and I know that, and just see what he's going to say.
Yeah.
What's he going to tell?
They're trying to force his hand. He knows he's he knows he's hemmed up. We're going to force his hand. And I mean, as he should be. Thank God he's in jail. Thank God Chadwell's in jail.
Yeah.
Thank God Garrett Kurtz is in jail. Thank God Thomas Bruce is in jail. And the list goes on. Dude across the street from him is going to prison. I mean, no. How many are actually involved, you know? Who's to say?
I mean, and rumor is that, you know, there's going to be an arrest soon. Within the next few weeks. So I'm waiting patiently.
Charges are coming.
I'm waiting patiently.
Rumors out there that charges are coming. And they were waiting on that one piece, and I believe they got it. So I believe charges are coming in another case too. Summer Wells.
That is took a whole lot of spins on that one.
Yeah. I think it's about, you still there? You still with us? I think it's about time we wrap this up for tonight because it's getting late and I've rambled on enough. We're going to
Me too.
Nuts. But
it's been a while, but it's been good to
a life after death thing in another time. Anyway,
yeah, we didn't mean to bore you guys.
Yeah, didn't mean to bore you. I'm just very conflicted on, you know, I'm at a crossroads where I'm trying to find forgiveness, but finding it difficult. And finding difficulty in my own judgment of others. You know, supposed to pray for sinners, and I'm not so good at that.
God's in control.
Yep, it's in his hands. All right, folks. I guess we'll see you next time. You guys have a good night, and I hope we didn't bore you too much. God bless you.
God bless. Keep praying for the
Yeah.
missing.
Yep.
And the families.
Keep praying for for everybody. You know, this has got to stop. It's got to stop. You know, pray for an end to.
Let's for a final point. I don't think that they're gonna do the arrest until after Kelsey's wedding. I think they're gonna hold out a little bit until after her wedding.
Wedding gift.
Yeah. I think she's getting married June 25th. So
Let's hope. Let's pray. Pray for justice.
she made public statements that she was hoping that it didn't come before because it would just tear her up.
Put a damper on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, take her mind away from her, beautiful day.
Right.
So on that note, hope you all have a good night. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Belinda.
It was a pleasure.
I'll talk to you soon. Good night.